Hey everybody, what's going on? A lot has transpired since I last spoke to you before free agency opened just after the NHL draft where the Montreal Canadiens selected David Reinbacher. If you haven't already, check out my video on what the Canadiens are getting with their new top defensive prospect, and also subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Today's video, we're going to be breaking down what the Montreal Canadiens blue line could look like next season. There's a lot of question marks about how this could transpire, especially after the club dealt Joel Edmundson to the Washington Capitals for a 3rd and 7th round pick. This was kind of a trade that made a lot of sense for Kent Hughes and company to make. The Montreal Canadiens were likely not going to see an increase in value for Edmundson because of his injury history and just his lack of stability to staying on the ice. This is a veteran presence though that teams covet, and when all things considered, you have to be impressed with the return that Kent Hughes was able to get for Edmundson, especially with those concerns surrounding him. This is a player that just didn't make a lot of sense to fit into the Montreal Canadiens defensive core in 2023 and beyond. You're kind of blocking up young players from getting that roadway map to the NHL if Edmundson is in the lineup, and that's not taking away from his veteran experience and what he can do to mentor these young kids on the Montreal Canadiens blue line. But when you have a player like David Savard and Mike Matheson as well, it's important that the Montreal Canadiens continue leaning on their youth, developing their young defensemen, and moving forward with that mentality, because the only way that these youngsters are going to improve is with getting ice time, making mistakes, being allowed to play creatively, and that's exactly why this is the perfect situation under Martin St. Louis, who lets players learn but also lets them make mistakes and doesn't punish them for it like we have seen with some past head coaches under this organization previously. And I think that's a positive mentality and a refreshing way to go about business for the Montreal Canadiens. Speaking of how this blue line is going to shape up though, I think you're going to see a few locks in this rotation. Mike Matheson, David Savard, those are two of the mainstays that are going to be present on the blue line in 2023, followed by Caden Gooley, Arbor Jackeye. You'd like to think Jordan Harris. You'd like to think Justin Barron. There's a lot of players that are likely going to have to fight for those bottom two spots in this organization on the NHL roster. Chris Weidman is a really nice 7th defenseman. Really, there's just a lot of players that could push for spots at camp. I don't think David Reinbacher will be one of those. I think it would be wise for him to go back over to Switzerland and continue developing over there for at least the next season. He might get some games in Laval before he goes over, but I think the smart decision for Reinbacher is not to rush him. Let him go back over there, continue creating offense and really honing his offensive skills before he potentially comes over next season and plays in Laval or ultimately plays with the Montreal Canadiens. That's it for me today from Cook's Corner. As always, let me know in the comment section down below what you believe the Montreal Canadiens blue line will look like going into next season, and if you think some of these young kids can push for roster spots. I'm Zach Cook. We'll see you later.